Welcome everybody to the Probe Dental podcast. Today we're joined by Eric Hubbard, who is launching Oarline here in the UK. Eric, thank you for joining us. How are things out in is it Dallas, Texas?
Things are exciting in Dallas. The World Cup is here, and we're getting to meet all the fans in the world. They're playing in the stadium, just 20 miles from the house, and it's been exciting this year.
I was going to say is that the home of the Dallas Cowboys, isn't it? The stadium.
It
Is
is,
that
yeah,
the one?
yeah.
Which I'm trying to remember the
That's the
name,
one.
but it's huge, isn't it?
They call it. It is. Yeah, we call it AT&T Stadium, but during the World Cup they call it Dallas Stadium. But that's all right. That's FIFA for you.
I have noticed, as somebody who's been to a few stadiums in America as well myself, I have noticed all the names just seem to be the city and none of the sponsorship. But yeah, well, I hope you're enjoying the World Cup. I say for us, it's a little bit late. It's like staying up to watch the NFL. I think all the football fans here are starting to get a bit of a taste of that. But so obviously we're here today to introduce Oarline. I wondered if you could give us a little bit of a background about the company and kind of how it's sprung out of pain-free dental marketing in the US.
Yeah, Oarline is. We've been in dental marketing now since 2015 here in the States, and it's a longer story, of course, but the short version is we do have some friends in the UK that are dentists out of Minehead and Bath and a few other places, and as we would get together, we would hear so much, and even though the terms are different, insurance and NHS and all these things, there was so much commonality there. And, one day we were just sort of thinking of like, gosh, is there really a way for these principal dentists to get the help they need to make this transition from NHS to cash patients? And that's really how it was born. And we're not trying to be a full agency and have them invest tons of money into marketing. We're trying to meet them where they're at, and that was the genesis of Oarline and our launch into the UK.
Fantastic. So obviously you have plenty of experience. You're coming from pain-free dental marketing out in the States, and I believe perhaps in other territories as well. Kind of as you get set to launch Oarline here in the UK, what's been, obviously you've mentioned the NHS already and kind of, I guess how it is a little bit different, but what has been the biggest culture shock you've found, comparing British patients and how they view private dental care to, kind of US consumers?
The biggest shock was I was surprised at the British patients kind of blaming the dentist almost for the NHS problems. That was sort of surprising to me. That was it. That their anger was sometimes directed at them. And as we dug into it more, I do understand the plight of the patient of, for years I've had this NHS program and now it's getting more difficult to find a dentist. And, so often they're being almost forced into cash pay practices because of the experience they've had. They can't find another dentist, the dental deserts and all those things. So for me, that's been the most surprising to experience from our side. Because typically in the U.S., if I'm picking a cash practice, it's because I'm looking for a higher level of treatment. I'm looking for a different experience. Where here, there's that dynamic, and of course you do have the cosmetic patients looking. But I think that's been the biggest single shock is some of them are sort of forced into it, or they feel forced into it, and that creates a unique marketing problem to solve there.
I wondered if we could step back a little bit as well and just kind of give everybody listening and watching a bit more of an introduction to you and your background. If you could kind of, I guess, tell us the story of how you've, your journey here to Oarline today.
Yeah, it probably begins with the creation of Pain Free. My family is from a rural community that doesn't particularly prioritize healthcare. And, as an adult, I did have real, dental problems. And you know, the as we got into it, there were several things that, as I began my private dental journey, right, my personal dental journey, I made friends with this dentist, and it happened to be a dentist that did, right by my mom back in the day. And it struck me as how I think that the dental community is one of those, the last bastion of entrepreneurial local people who are really in service to their community, right? And in the digital age, it's so broad, and it struck me as it really struck me that kind of this is my place, right? And as we grew from serving one practice to three to around 100 in the U.S., we started looking at like where else can we do business and enjoy. And of course we had the friends, like I said, in the UK, and that's what really brought us to the UK. It's around, really, if you think about dentists and you think of all the other industries that have private equity or global, there's really very few industries that serve their community, right? And that was the genesis of the company. It was really to be in service to each other. And well, I know that it's weird. A guy from Texas talking about serving the UK. I think there's something in us that really like that locally owned business that we want, right? And helping them do business and be competitive in a market that's stacked against them, right? Private equity and NHS. I mean, how do you compete with those with your livelihood? And that's really how the genesis of the company was born. And that's even takes care of the Oarline pivot that we're making this year. And our goal is to help practices stay private, to help to help them have a successful, thriving practice that they're proud of and that they serve their community in, without all the negative things that carry it.
I think it's interesting that kind of local community aspect that you mentioned is, it's almost something quite romantic to it, and it's interesting how it's kind of, despite the fact you're talking about kind of locality, it all does seem to be universal, kind of a universal thing around the world, and that's obviously what's brought you here. I was going to ask which other countries you're currently active in as well, because I know obviously pain-free dental marketing started off in the States, but is active in a few other territories as well. How have you kind of found sort of moving, kind of throughout the world?
Yeah, we're primarily in the U.S. We have some offices in Canada. We've had some offices in Mexico at various points, but we're primarily U.S. based. We have a few offices in Canada. And part of it is just there's only so many countries that the global economy is in your favor, as well as this private blend of practice that exists, and so yeah, the U.S., Canada, and UK.
Fantastic. So obviously in the US, dental marketing can be rather bold and direct, whereas over here, you've kind of, especially with, it's not just the patients either, but obviously you have the General Dental Council, obviously Advertising Standards Agency as well. They've all got strict rules around kind of what you can and can't say. So that kind of applies to things as well. Even things that seem quite tame, I suppose, like kind of if you claim to be a specialist in something or guaranteeing a clinical outcome. So how are you kind of adopting the strategy for Oarline? Kind of making sure that you stay compliant with all of that.
I love this question. Because I think when and the World Cup has been so amazing to watch, because when you hear of all the people and they come to the United States and what they experienced and what they were told and all, it's such a fascinating to meet people. And yeah, the U.S. is known for being loud and these wild claims in marketing, and that's valid, and that definitely happens. We have found in dental, and I'm going to address the U.S. and then pivot into what that means for UK. There's a core philosophy, James, and it's around our agency, the practices that we serve. We're not selling the teeth side. We're not selling Invisalign. We're not selling implants. We're not selling veneers, right? We're selling the connection with the dentist. And when you strip down, I don't care if you're in, the England or Portugal or, Canada, you go to your dentist because of the connection you have. You go there because of you believe they're gonna help you get through your thing. And there's 5 or 10 ways, maybe more, to fix someone's teeth. You can do it all in one sitting. You can stretch it out. I mean, you can do veneers, you can do crowns, you can put fillings. There's so many ways to solve it. You're really banking on the connection with the dentist, right? That's what the investment is. Okay. So when you distill that into marketing, it's not about being wild and loud and crazy in the dental marketing community. It's around accelerating that connection with the dentist. It's around, when you see that principle, you want a connection. So if you sort of view it through the lens of, we're not trying to attract every single person out there to come to practice, we're attracting their people, right? Okay, so if we're attracting their people, we have to stay in alignment with who they are as a human being, right? So actually, we want to hear things like, what would you tell a patient who hasn't been to the dentist in a few years? What would you tell a patient who's nervous about their smile? How would you walk someone through what it is like to come to your practice? And none of those are wild claims. Like, I don't believe we should be cheapening dentistry. I think that NHS does that already for us. I don't think that we should be trying to compete on price. I think private equity is doing that. I think we need to compete on experience and connection. And if you look at the most successful practices, that's what they inherently do. So paradoxically, not making wild claims and focusing on the connection, not showing, these beautiful pictures of models that, you're alleging you did work on or whatever it is, it actually plays to the favor of the local community dentist who's trying to make a connection. It actually plays in our strength, paradoxically, because we're not trying to compete with every other organization out there that has private equity backed. And that's where the magic is. It's around that connection and highlighting that.
It's interesting. So it's almost like it's more the human factor rather than, it's kind of over anything else, especially in kind of this digital age as well. That seems, I suppose that's what helps you stand out, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the difference of it's funny. I have it's hard to, we have baseball and you have the premiership, of course, but, in baseball, there's a saying that, the Yankees are by far the wealthy team, in U.S. sports. I mean, they're the payroll of their players is, 5, 7, 8 times, what other cool clubs can afford. And there's, if you think like the Yankees in here, you're going to lose to the Yankees out there, right? And that applies in dentistry too. You have to play to your practice's strengths, and that's the best marketing. It's not trying to be something you're not.
I like that. So it keeps it authentic, keeps it organic. I wanted to also ask you, obviously, so about Oarline's model. Obviously, it's built around helping mixed practices become, kind of private ready, kind of before, trying to sort of scale demand. So that means starting with, kind of the foundation, how the practice kind of shows up on its website, kind of Google profile, kind of all that digital stuff. On the online presence, kind of so for a UK-based practice principal, we try to reduce their NHS dependence, and obviously grow that private care. What kind of transition does that look like? Kind of in practice, and kind of what's usually the first thing to change?
Lovely question, James. I here in the U.S., somewhere around 8th, 9th grade, we're taught this Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Physical security, and then at the top there's this enlightenment, right, pyramid. I think marketing has a similar philosophy, and a lot of small businesses try to jump to advertising, right? And we say marketing, we really mean running ads, or we really mean these things. And I think that's the principal dentists who think of marketing as advertising are missing the bottom of the pyramid. And the bottom of the pyramid is when someone Googles you, or they look you up, or they go to your, Google business profile, or your Facebook page or Instagram page. They're looking for a foundation, right? And you have to get that foundation right before you can start investing money into advertising. Otherwise, you're really throwing your money away. You're just wasting your money. So a lot of practices want the private growth, but their website is outdated, or doesn't relay that message. The Google profile looks like it was from 1998. And it needs to be updated. We need nice images of the practice, of clean headshots. We want to present a good foundation of it, and then we can start building on it. But the foundation really is a solid website, good Google business profile, and making sure that you're representing a place that people would actually want to go to.
So, and one of the things that also stands out about Oarline's model is kind of a lack of long-term lock-in. Obviously for a UK practice that obviously may already feel perhaps cautious about marketing partners, obviously that's quite a meaningful signal. But why was it important to kind of build the relationship that way? And what do you think practices need to see early on, in order to feel confident that they're in the right hands with you?
Yeah, because I hate contracts. I think contracts bring out the worst in products. I do. And when have you hired someone and guaranteed them a year's salary? Right? You don't. When you recruit someone, when you hire someone, you go through a trial period. You're evaluating their contribution to your team. You're looking at them through the lens regularly. Why would we be different, right? And that to me is the genesis of it. Why would I want something for you that I don't want for me? And I don't want a contract. I want to make the best decision with where I'm at, with the information I have. So for us, that's been a core tenet of our work. If we're not adding value to your practice, you shouldn't be forced to do business with us for some set period of time. And it's that easy. I would be skeptical of agencies. I would be, who's not skeptical of marketing? I mean, we all love to talk poor about marketing. But fundamentally, I think it's the right way to do business.
Absolutely. We're in agreement here. And I mean, if anybody wants to find out more, kind of where can they find Oarline? I take it there's a website.
There is a website, but if you Google your marketing company, you can't find them. That's probably a bad sign of their marketing, James. But yeah, I would just start by Googling Oarline. But yeah, oarline.co.uk. And we love, obviously, cards on the table. We are breaking into the UK. We're excited about it. I mean, we would love to make sure that the founding clients, the first batch of clients that join us, we definitely want to make a really nice, sweet offer to. So come and check us out, and come and have a conversation.
Excellent. Well, we will include all of the information that we can in the episode description as well. So anybody listening, watching, scroll down, find that there. But excellent. Eric, thank you very much for joining us today. I really appreciate your time from Dallas, and we look forward to seeing you in the UK soon as well.
Yeah, I'm excited. We'll be there in October. Thanks, James.